What's up, guys, and welcome back to the Heisman Watch podcast, your home for hot topics and hot takes. I'm your host, Kyle Heiss. We got some fun conversations to be had today. NBA Finals Game 6. We have first, I would consider, big trade of the NBA summer, and then we're going to finish off with continuing that Please Be Good segment, NFC edition. So, without further ado, we're going to dive right into that first topic, NBA Finals Game 6. Boston was at home. They couldn't pull it off and get that Game 6 victory like I predicted and push it back to Game 7. Golden State went to Boston and handled their business. They are officially world champs, NBA Finals. Congratulations to Golden State getting that fourth ring in the Steve Kerr era. And Steph got his first ever Finals MVP. Congrats to Steph. It's cool to see that he added just another accolade to his resume. And it was hard to see that Jason Tatum just didn't really produce. Jaylen Brown, 34 points, matched Steph. Steph and Jaylen both had 34, and Jason Tatum just wasn't it that night. And it sucks not having your shot fall, especially as the superstar of the team. It sucks not having your shot fall. But Tatum is young. He'll have different opportunities, just kind of like Book 2 years ago, where Book fell short against the Bucks, but he's also a young player, and it looks like the Suns are on an upward trend still. So he'll have his opportunities. But just congrats to Golden State. Party hardy. You're gonna have a good time for the next just rest of the summer celebrating this NBA Finals. But yeah, so with this Finals victory, one of the biggest questions that I've been seeing recently is, does this put Steph in the top 10 all-time status? I say yes, and here's why. You cannot write the history of the NBA without mentioning Steph Curry. You can't. That's one of the biggest, and you can make the argument for someone like Bob Cousy when it comes to that. But when it comes to impact, and when it comes to mentioning him in the history of the NBA, I believe you cannot keep Steph Curry out of the top 10. And before we dive into any more details, I just want to, here is my personal top 10 all time. I have MJ 1. Now, obviously, everybody today is one of the biggest debates in NBA right now is who is the best all time, and everybody, half the world says LeBron, half the world still says MJ. I'm part of the half that still says MJ. It's very, very, very hard to argue 6 or 6, and just how unstoppable he was. But LeBron is making a case. When it's all said and done, we will go back, we will look, and we will see if LeBron is officially leapfrog Michael. For now, I'm just going to have Mike 1, LeBron 2. I got Kareem at 3. I've got Magic at 4. I've got the late Kobe Bryant at 5. I've got Bird at 6. Shaq at 7. Wilt Chamberlain at 8. You got to have Mr. 11 Rings, Bill Russell at 9. And then I got Steph Curry at 10. So here's my reasoning. When it comes down to top 10, personal achievements can't just be it. Can you leave them out when writing the history of the NBA? And if you can't, that is another reason why they should be top 10. So, MJ has been considered the greatest player of all time since he retired, maybe before then. LeBron is making a very, very strong case to pass MJ up, but it is not definitive yet because half the world still says MJ, half the world still says half the world says LeBron has passed him up. But LeBron is making a very, very strong case to pass MJ up. You got Kareem, one of the greatest scorers of all time. That skyhook, unstoppable, his rings with the Lakers, part of Showtime. You can't. Kareem has to be up there. One of the all-time leading scorers. Magic. He is Showtime. You can't talk about the Showtime Lakers without Magic Johnson's impact. You can't talk about a top 10 list without having the best point guard of all time on it. And before MJ, Magic was considered the best in the league. Next, you got Kobe, the late Kobe Bryant. Kobe mirrored his game after MJ. Kobe had 5 rings with the Lakers. It's hard to keep Kobe off of that. Kobe is an absolute legend. He is the closest thing to Mike since Mike. Then you got Bird. When you talk about Magic, Bird is in that conversation. Magic and Bird are like neck and neck. Now, I have Kobe ahead. I just think Kobe with his 20-plus seasons with the Lakers, his 5 rings, his impact on the game, the fact that he was almost a mirror image of MJ. I have Kobe just slightly ahead of Bird, but Bird is right there. And you any sort of list with Magic on it, Bird is on it, right underneath. Then I got Shaq. Shaq is one of the most dominant forces the league has ever seen, with how many backboards he's broken. But Shaq is on that list. Shaq has to be on that list. Won a ring with Miami, won some rings with Kobe, and just how much of a force he was in the league. Like nobody could stop him with his size, with his strength, with how he could move, especially earlier on in his career when he was more mobile. Now, obviously, the later he got in his career, it's hard for a man of that size to be able to consistently move up and down the court. Well, like you see how Al Horford was doing. Al Horford is still producing, but he has kind of stretched his game out as more of a stretch 4, but Al Horford can't move as well anymore. Same thing with Shaq towards the end of his career. The bigger guys in this league, they just towards the end of their career, they just can't move as well. But Shaq still has to be on that list with how dominant he was. Nobody had ever seen a player like him before. Then you got Wilt Chamberlain, dominated his era. Right after that, you got Bill Russell. You have to, whenever any sort of list like this happens, Mr. 11 rings. He's got more rings than fingers. So Bill Russell has to be there. Dominated with the Celtics. Now, you could argue the competition has evolved and has gotten better, but even still, nobody has as many rings as Bill Russell. Bill Russell has more rings than most franchises. So Bill Russell has to be in that conversation. And then I got Steph at 10. Steph has 4 rings, 1 Finals MVP, 8 All-NBAs, or 8 first-team All-NBAs. He's an 8-time All-Star, and he is considered the greatest shooter of all time. He has changed the game. Not many times have you seen players change the game. Michael had a major impact on the game. He helped the NBA kind of go international. With like the fan base, but Steph changed the game. We had never seen a player like him before with how well he could shoot, how well he could shoot from range. Like we'd never seen that before. Steph has changed the game a lot. Like the 3-point shot is almost more important than a layup now. Because Steph has turned the 3-point shot into a layup with how well he shoots the ball. So Steph has to be in that conversation with top 10 all time, one of the greatest players to ever do it, because he is the greatest shooter of all time. We have Ray Allen. You've got Reggie Miller. You've got some great shooters in the past, but nobody has ever done it on the level like Steph. When he ever competes in 3-point competitions, does anybody ever think he's going to lose? No, because it's Steph. When he takes a half-court shot, something that, like, if you saw even a great 3-point shooter like J.J. Redick was in his career. J.J. Redick is a 40+% 3-point shooter career-wise. If he shot a half-court shot just for fun in the middle of a game, just because he was open, everybody would be questioning that. because that's not JJ's shot. JJ is a three-point shooter, but JJ's not a half-court shooter. Steph changed not just shooting, but three-point shooting. He stretched it out. Like, you see players like Damian Lillard are trying to match that with the range of the shot that he's taking. And young players are now trying to model their game after Steph. And that's the kind of impact that he's had. People have tried to model their game after MJ, like Kobe did. And it's kind of trickled down where players like Devin Booker and Jason Tatum are trying to model their game after Kobe, who modeled their game after MJ. So it's kind of a chain reaction. Now Steph is becoming that model player where it's young players trying to develop and go collegiate and go pro. They're modeling their game after Steph. Like you saw how Trae Young was in college. Do you think Trae Young does that if Steph doesn't pioneer it? So that's what I'm trying to get at is, and I would love to see in the comments how people would rearrange this and debate on who their top 10 is. I would not be surprised to see people put LeBron at 1 and MJ at 2. I would not be surprised if people actually did leave Steph out. Just because his career isn't over yet. It's kind of hard. Like, LeBron is the only other player on that list who is still an active player. But LeBron, you can't take off that list just because of how dominant he's been for so long. So I think Steph is able to squeak in just because of the impact that he's had and being considered the greatest shooter of all time, all of the accolades that he's had, the impact that he's had on the game, and you can't write the history of the NBA without mentioning Steph at least once, probably multiple times, with how he's evolved the three-point game. He almost single-handedly eliminated the five, or the center. Now Joel Embiid and Nikola Jokic and players like, not as dominant, but Karl Anthony Towns have something to say about it. They're trying to make the big man still relevant. Rudy Gobert has won all these Defensive Player of the Years, but Steph almost single-handedly eliminated the big man, because why do you need another center if you can just add another dominant three-point shooter and you're getting more points out of it? Now, obviously, the layups and mid-rangers are more of a high percentage shot, but like I said, Steph has changed the mindset. The three-point shot has never been shot as much as it has now. Why? Because of the Splash Brothers, specifically how Steph has been shooting it. Klay is one of the best shooters of all time. And it's just how the Warriors have been able to play, how they've been able to consistently hit those shots, their ball movement, being able to find those players open, and it allows Steph to have the impact that he's had. So once again, all kudos in the world and all congrats in the world to the Warriors for winning that. And then it was good to see Steph finally win his Finals MVP, which has been, I don't know why it's been the one knock, but it's been the one knock in his career with all the accolades he has. People just keep saying, well, he doesn't have a Finals MVP. Well, now that is not something that you can hold against him. Yes, KD won those Finals MVPs whenever they won championships in Golden State, and I would say rightfully so. Iggy won his in, 2015, even though people think Steph should have won it. Iggy won that one, but just hats off to Steph for finally winning that Finals MVP. He definitely earned it, closing out Game 6 with 34. He had 43 in Game 4, so Steph was dominant. He was making sure that the Warriors are going to come away with this Finals. You could tell just how he was playing, how he was dominating, how he was shooting, that he was going to make sure that the Warriors came, whether they lost Game 6 or not, he was making sure that the Warriors were going to win this series. It just so happened to be in Boston and in 6. So, once again, congratulations. But we're gonna segue into a different part of an NBA topic. Like I said, summer trades are finally happening, and the Mavericks, and the state of Texas kicked it off. Dallas and Houston made that trade, and it was the first big trade or big announced trade of the summer, and the official trade was Boban Marjanovic, Marquise Chris, Trey Burke, Sterling Brown, and the Mavericks' number 26 overall pick in this upcoming draft for Christian Woods. Now, I think the Mavs won this trade. You had 4 players who had little to no impact in the postseason, and a number 26 pick where you probably wouldn't be able to find a player better than Christian Woods. So you gave up players that you didn't really use and a pick that you couldn't find a player better. Now, if the Mavs had like a top 10 pick, all right, maybe a stretch. But because they gave up such a late first-round pick and 4 non-impactful players for a guy that's going to make an immediate impact and is going to be an immediate starter on that roster, I think the Mavs won this trade. Christian Woods is a 6'11" power forward / center. Some would consider him a stretch 4 because he's a 38% career three-point shooter. And last year he came off 18 and 10 on 50% shooting overall and 39% from 3, which is a perfect fit for the Mavs because that gives you a big man that's not going to clog the paint for Luka. Because a large part of Luka's game, now he loves that step back 3, but a large part of Luka's game is drive and dish, or drive and layup and or hard foul and get to the line. So you need to have a big man to be able to spread it out, crash the boards. He's still 6'11". He's still one of the taller guys in this league, so he's still able to get those boards, and he's a career double-double. So he's 19 and 10 career. So he's still going to get those rebounds. He's still a bigger force, and that was one of the needs that the Mavs needed. Was another big body, especially after they traded Kristaps to Washington. So they needed more depth at the front court, and they got that in Christian Wood. And on top of that, they got a stretch 4. So we'll see if this fit is more, or it will work out better than what Kristaps was. So they were hoping that Kristaps would be able to light it up and be that second option for Luka, but he just couldn't stay healthy, and that was his downfall with the Mavs. But I think Christian Woods has the potential to be a really, really solid fit, and I think the Mavs got a really good player for what they gave up. 4 players that didn't make an impact much in the postseason, and a pick that you won't even see them see the court. Whoever they would have gotten at 26, you probably wouldn't even see them on the court for a couple seasons. Or if he's on the court for within a couple seasons, it's not very many minutes. Excuse me. So Christian Woods can make that immediate impact. So it's almost like they cleared the bench and then drafted Christian Wood at 26, which I think is phenomenal for the Mavericks. Immediate impact player, stretch 4 guy, fits that offense well with what Jason Kidd is trying to do, because the Mavericks, it looks like they're going to live or die by the 3-point shot. Kind of like referring back to what Steph and how Steph changed the game. But the Mavs live and die by that 3-point shot. So the fact that they added not only a guy with size, but another potential shooter is huge for that roster. Huge for that roster. Because he's, like I said, like Dwight Powell was like their main big guy. Boban is over 7 foot, but he just doesn't really move well. He didn't make an impact. But Dwight Powell was their like biggest role player or starter on that team, and then after that it went down to like Bertans and Maxi Kleber, who are really like more perimeter guys. They're just tall perimeter guys. So the fact that they were able to get a 6'11" young player, because Christian Wood is only 26, he's not even really reached his prime yet. So the fact that they were able to get a young, impactful stretch big man, it fits their offense well, and I'm excited to see how it's going to work out next year. I think Luka's going to have another fantastic season. He's going to be another MVP candidate. We'll see if he can finally win a regular season MVP. But with how the Mavs finished, I think this only makes their team better. So they finished last season as a 4 seed, made it 2 rounds deep, they made it to the Western Conference Finals, and then lost to the Golden State Warriors, who ended up going on to win the finals, obviously. But I would not be surprised if the Mavericks retain, at bare minimum, retain their 4 seed. Now the West is going to be very competitive. You still got the Golden State Warriors who are champions until proven otherwise. And Draymond would be the first to tell you that even if they start off bad, we're still defending champions, and we are the champions of the NBA until we are beaten, or until we're eliminated. So until the Warriors are eliminated next year, they're going to be the best in the league. The Suns, even though they're doing it's that potential sign and trade deal with DA or wherever he lands, the Suns are still trending up in my opinion. I don't think whatever move they make, I don't think it'll make the team any worse. And they're coming off the best regular season. Now, I don't think the Suns are going to repeat the 64-win season. This is the best in franchise history. But I do think the Suns are still a top 3 team in the West. The Memphis Grizzlies, very young core guys. Ja Morant, exciting player. They finished off as the 3 seed. They were a very exciting roster. So I mean the Warriors and the Grizzlies and the Suns, those are your top 3 teams in the West, I think, going into next season as well. Just the impact of some of those players and those rosters and how well they're coached and how well the players play together. And then you have the Lakers are probably going to be back. I don't see LeBron unless LeBron leaves LA. Anthony Davis is going to be back and healthy. We'll see if he can stay healthy. But Anthony Davis is going to be back and healthy. LeBron always has something to say. I don't care that he's 37. LeBron is still considered one of the best players to do it currently. And I mean, you got all these different teams, and the Nuggets are going to get a lot of players back. Jokic has been carrying that roster, got him to a 6 seed. But you're going to get Jamal Murray back, who is number 2, and he's been missing Jamal Murray really, really bad. We'll see how far Utah falls. It's looking like it's on the brink of implosion with Utah, with Rudy Gobert maybe leaving. There's potential that Donovan Mitchell might get traded. They just lost their head coach, so we'll see how far Utah falls or what happens with Utah. But there's some good depth in the West. But I do think with the addition of Christian Wood for the Mavs could, at bare minimum, retain that 4 seed and at least get home court next season in the first round of the playoffs. But, I mean, anything can happen in sports. We've seen crazy things happen in the past. Like the Suns run. Nobody thought the Suns were going to do anything in 2020, 2021. But they ended up making that crazy run in the finals, losing in 6 to the Bucks. But yeah, so I mean, the Mavs have high potential, especially since you have a superstar like Luka, who is an MVP candidate, who has high potential to go down in history as the greatest international player of all time. Dirk still holds that status, in my opinion, but Luka, when it's all said and done, will probably end up as the greatest international player of all time, and I wouldn't be surprised when it's all said and done if he cracks that top 10 list that we were talking about earlier, all time. So when you have a player like Luka, when you have a player like LeBron, when you have a player like Steph, it doesn't matter who your supporting cast is, you're always going to be in conversation for playoffs. So when you just add that much more talent, we saw the impact that Spencer Dinwiddie has off the bench as a scorer. Jalen Brunson was really popping off in the postseason. Now with Christian Wood and all these guys, the Mavs got better with this move. Now, do I think they got that much better where they're going to make a top 3 jump? We'll see. I don't know. But they definitely got better with that move, and at bare minimum, I think they at least retain that number 4 seed for next year. But I'm excited to watch the Mavs. Luka's always a fun watch. He's always a fun watch. Whenever he plays, you never know what kind of crazy step back he's going to hit. You never know what kind of crazy no-look pass or all these. Like, he's such a controlled player. He plays so slow but so controlled, and yet he's still able to, like, blow by you. And I don't understand how he does it, but he's able to. And the size that he is. Like, you saw how he was against the Suns. in the second round of the playoffs this year. Mikhail Bridges was runner-up in Defensive Player of the Year. Mikhail Bridges is known as one of the top defenders in the league, consistently guarding the best guy on the team. Consistently. And Luka bullied him. Luka bullied Mikhail. Because Luka is so big and so dominant and so controlled that he bullied the Defensive Player runner-up. And I don't think Marcus Smart, who won the Defensive Player of the Year award, I don't think Marcus Smart could have done much against Luka. Maybe he would have been a little bit more physical, just because Marcus Smart is more of a physical guy. He's a thicker build. Mikhail's really skinny. He's just quick with his hands. He's got such a long reach. He's able to block shots. But Luka bullied Mikhail. So bad. So bad. And I love Mikhail Bridges. I think he's an excellent player. He's an excellent role player. One of the better defensive players in this league consistently. But Luka sunned him. Without question. So that just shows, I don't think that shows a slip in Mikhail. I think that just shows how dominant Luka is. The fact that you're going up against the Defensive Player of the Year runner-up and you're still dropping 30 a game on him. So I wouldn't be surprised if the Mavs go on a good run. I don't know if it's going to be finals worthy, but I think they go, and I think they potentially repeat and go to the Western Conference Finals. We'll see. It would be a lot of fun. It would be a lot of fun to see that. The last time the Mavs had a championship was that 2011 run with Dirk Nowitzki. That was really fun to watch, and how they beat the big three of the Miami Heat. But yeah, I'm rooting for this trade to really work out better than the Kristaps trade. I think it's an equivalent player for cheaper, in my opinion, just because Kristaps is such a good talent, but he can't stay on the court because he's never healthy. As opposed to Christian Wood, we're going to see how he is. If he can stay healthy, if he can stay on the court, he's going to have a great impact in this offense, and we'll see how Jason Kidd works around it. But I think that move unclogs the paint for Luka, and it just opens the floor up, and it allows him to truly play his game, to truly be able to drive and dish, to truly be able to find those open guys, or to just attack the paint well. And like I said, I'm excited to see the Mavs next year. I think this move made them better. It's going to be a lot of fun to see. All right, last topic. We're going to close out with Please Be Good NFC edition. I'm having fun with this little segment that I thought of, and I don't know. It's fun to root for the underdog. Being somebody that consistently roots for an underdog, you can see by the Kurt Warner poster kind of where my allegiance lies with the teams that I root for. But I enjoy rooting for the underdog. Like the Cincinnati Bengals this past season, I was rooting for I was loving Joe Burrow, Joe Shiesty, and just how fun it was, and Jamar Chase, and it was fun to see a franchise that has no history of winning pop off out of nowhere and almost win a Super Bowl. And Jamar Chase on that last play was wide open if Aaron Darnold was just blocked for a half second longer. That's literally all it was. Aaron Donald he's just such a dominant defensive lineman that he just completely abolished that play. But Joe Burrow had Chase. He really had Chase down the field. He beat Jalen Ramsey. He had him downfield, but just Aaron Donald is just that good of a D lineman, and he might go down in history as one of the greatest D tackles of all time. But that's another topic for another day. So Please Be Good NFC edition. So we're going to start off with the NFC East. My pick for the NFC East is the New York Giants, the New York Football Giants. And here's my reason. I'm rooting for Danny Dimes. I love that nickname, Danny Dimes. Who I don't even know who thought of that or who thought that up, but that's a beautiful nickname. But he needs to back it up this year. He does. We're gonna see, because they got it's his third head coach since being drafted in 2019. who they just signed as their new head coach is Brian Daboll, who was formerly the offensive coordinator for the Buffalo Bills. So I honestly think that was a really, really good move by the Giants. Brian Daboll has been part of the Josh Allen project, and we see how productive Josh Allen has been. He is now in Pat Mahomes conversations when it comes to who's the best quarterback in the AFC. And they have some of the best battles in their matchups. The Bills and the Chiefs currently have some of the best battles. And we saw that overtime loss that the Bills had to the Chiefs in the playoffs, which basically the Bills lost by a coin flip. But I am curious to see how Brian Daboll works with Daniel Jones. See if we get some improvement. See if he can have some of that Josh Allen magic that he had in Buffalo. But I do think that was a good coaching move or coaching switch by the Giants. It was a really good hire, in my opinion. You got a very successful offensive coordinator from a very successful team. Now your head coach. We're going to see how that works out. But yeah, I'm rooting for the New York Giants in this one. Okay, going to the NFC North. I am rooting for the Chicago Bears. Please be good Bears. Duh, Bears. But here's my reasoning for that one. I'm rooting for Justin Fields. Matt Nagy was the coach last year. There was a lot of controversy with how he used him, and he played him sometime, and then he didn't play him. I think it was smart that the Bears moved off of Nagy. But I'm rooting for Justin Fields to be successful. He has excitement potential in this league. And Chicago hasn't really had much success. I mean, the last real run they had was when they lost to Peyton Manning's Indianapolis Colts in that Super Bowl years ago. So they've been searching for a quarterback since Jay Cutler and Rex Grossman. So I think they have one in Justin Fields. We will see. Obviously, he's still very, very early in his career. I'm pretty sure this is year 2 for him. But the new head coach that they have is now Matt Eberflus, who was the defensive coordinator for the Colts. And we'll see if that was a good hiring move. I don't know if it was smart to go from one defensive guy to another defensive guy, especially since how the NFL is evolving into a very offensive-driven. You see all these hires where Sean McVay is an offensive guy. Matt LaFleur for Green Bay, offensive guy. So it's interesting to see that they went the defensive route for the Bears when they have the potential for a very exciting quarterback. I would have liked to have seen them go kind of what the Giants did with an offensive coordinator to be able to cater to that. But, I mean, we'll see. But the Bears are my pick for the North. I mean, obviously you have the Lions and you have the Packers are probably, as long as Aaron Rodgers is wearing green and gold, it's kind of hard to see Green Bay as anything other than the number 1 seed in the North. But I think it'd be exciting to see the Bears be successful. They've got such a big fan base. So yeah, I'm going for the Bears for the North. Next division, I'm going NFC South, and my choice is the Atlanta Falcons. And here's why. They are on a quarterback switch. Matt Ryan is an Indianapolis Colt now. Matt Ryan is in different colors. He's in a different city. This is the first time without Matt Ryan in many years. This is Arthur Smith in his second year as the head coach for Atlanta. I think giving the division and how, because the NFC is very top heavy. The AFC is very, very deep in talent. Very, very deep in talent. You have the AFC North with Pittsburgh, Cleveland, Baltimore, Cincinnati, and then you have the AFC West with Kansas City, LA, Las Vegas, and Denver. Very, very, that's 2 very deep from top to bottom divisions. The NFC is very, very top heavy. So you got Green Bay. Who else competes in that division? You got the LA Rams. You saw how Seattle has kind of dropped off with the trade with Russell Wilson. San Fran might be in a transition with going from Jimmy G to Trey Lance. So we're going to see. But the NFC is very top-heavy. So I think that the Atlanta Falcons have the potential to make a good enough push to be one of those 3 wildcard spots in the NFC. Marcus Mariota, as of right now, is probably going to be the starter for the season. This is kind of redemption year for him. But yeah, I'm excited to see how Atlanta does with like Calvin Ridley, or not Calvin Ridley, but I don't remember. But they got some talent over there. But Marcus Mariota, I think, should be a good, at least bridge quarterback for Atlanta, because since this draft class wasn't a very quarterback heavy one. We'll see what Atlanta does, but I do think they are on wild card watch. I'm gonna go out and say that I think Atlanta's on wild card watch. And then the last division, the NFC West. Excuse me. And I'm gonna go please be good. Arizona Cardinals. Call me on bias. I don't care. Seattle is probably gonna do nothing. They're relying on Geno Smith and Drew Lock. Then you have the Niners, who are in a transition, like I just said a few minutes ago, where you're going from Jimmy G to Trey Lance, and you don't know how Lance can play yet, obviously, since he hasn't really. And then the Rams are probably going to run away with that division. So my please be good is the Arizona Cardinals, for obvious reasons. I want to see Kyler Murray pop off. I want to see them make a deep run in the playoffs. I think they are going to be very exciting. J.J. Watt is still back. They lost Chandler Jones, but they drafted a few defensive ends that could be understudies for J.J. Watt. But my please be good for the NFC West is going to be the Arizona Cardinals. I don't know. I don't see any other. I mean, I think the Niners have the potential to go back into the wild card like last year with Shanahan as the head coach. You're never going to count them out. And if they don't trade Jimmy G, then you always have Garoppolo as that quarterback option if Trey Lance doesn't work out. But yeah, so I'm going to go with please be good Arizona Cardinals. I don't care. Call me out on bias. I'll roll with it. But yeah, thank you for tuning in to the Heisman Watch podcast. Like I said, I'm your host, Kyle Heiss, coming at you with some hot topics and hot takes. And I will catch you next time next week.